So my brother said something pretty cool to me. He said we are in the universe that other universes make fun of. So we are in the universe, out of all universes and possible worlds out there, where Donald Trump ran and possibly became president of the United States, the most powerful person in the world. That is crazy, and it is hilarious, and it is very disturbing. I mean, there are universes out there probably where Kanye West became Secretary General of the United Nations, where the capital of the UK is Slough, where lizards evolved and became the dominant species on Earth, and so on. But what I'm trying to say here is that there are many possible worlds that we can live in. So we're on a certain course right now, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a set path. We can choose the world that we live in. We can choose the story that we tell. There are many possible outcomes to the kind of world that we want to live in. And we can make this choice. We made a choice when we did the civil rights movement. We made a choice when we abolished slavery. We're making choices about the kinds of stories we want to tell, which will shape our world. We made a choice when we will make a choice by we are making a choice by working towards curing cancer. And so on. And these are all stories. And on the less positive side, we made a choice when we created the atom bomb and dropped it on Japan. That set a precedent. That told a story whereby might is right, whereby the powerful can subjugate the less powerful and rule by fear. That's the kind of story we chose to tell. We made a choice when we democratically, and I say we, I mean the human race. I mean when we democratically elected the Nazis. Before World War II, and that told a horrendous story, but it's still a story that we chose. So what I'm saying is that we all have a choice about the kind of world that we live in and the kind of stories we tell. Our choices create narratives, and those narratives inform the world that we live in, our values, our ideals, what we aim for, what we strive for. So let me use an example, a more contemporary example. Now, everyone complains about Obama, and everyone says that Obama hasn't done much, but the act of voting for Obama in 2008, when there was so much hope surrounding him, is amazing. Like, that was a really heroic act you could do by voting for Obama back in 2008. And I'll tell you why. Because everything that he stood for, you can complain about what he has or hasn't done, but everything that he stood for, diversity, change, tolerance, economic and social opportunity, amity, multilateralism, all these positive things, all these progressive values, because he stood for them and because he was elected, because people voted for him, people made a choice about the kind of world they wanted to live in. They made a choice about the kind of story they wanted to tell in our world. And the very act of telling that story changes the world. Everyone talks about how do we create world peace. The act of talking about peace, the act of thinking about peace, creates a version of it. And that's what I'm trying to say is that there's the physical world and what happens in it, but that is informed by the ideas underneath it and the choices that we make. And so the world is faced with another choice. It's faced with the US election and whether or not to elect Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. And it's a scary time because we're faced with what could be the creation of another horror story. In effect, we're faced with a situation where we're going to tell a story where difference is feared and difference is to be looked down upon. Where if you're black or Latino or Muslim or a Native American or even a woman, then you're to be subjugated and looked down upon. We're about to tell a story where what matters isn't compassion or empathy, but who's the bigger guy basically, and who can throw his weight around. And we've had quite a lot of that in the world, and it hasn't gotten us to good places. The story of the story of the strongman led to the Vietnam War, and it led to Iraq, and it led to countless dictators around the world. And it's not a good narrative. And we're faced with a choice with what kind of world we want to live in. And now the thing is, I get it. Like, Hillary Clinton is not an ideal choice. And I recognize that. I was a big Bernie Sanders supporter, and if I may say, Bernie Sanders made a huge difference. He may not have won the primaries, but he made a huge difference just by running. By running, he was creating a story. He was creating a new narrative in which there was a possibility that there would be equal opportunities, and more greater support for those who had less, and more opportunity for those who strived. And this is the kind of story he was trying to build for the United States, and by extension the world. He was talking about a world in which both Palestinians and Israelis had a fair share in the conversation towards creating peace. But this was all a positive conversation that he was creating, and by instigating this conversation, he was making a difference, and he still is. And I think for all our criticisms of Hillary Clinton, I think that she at least will engage with us in a conversation. She's someone we can engage with in the conversation of making the world a better place. We can talk and engage with the story that Hillary Clinton will write. We can contribute to that story, even if we don't like it. She's someone we can work with. But Donald Trump, once we set our paths on his version of things, on his narrative, we might not be able to change it to the extent that we want. We might not be able to advocate for the rights of different sexualities, or the need for multilateralism in world politics, or the importance of addressing climate change. We're currently on a path where our narrative is that our civilization is never ending, but the civilizations aren't never ending. They face cataclysms and challenges, and if we accept that into our narrative, we can accept that we need to change the way we do things, and so on. And Donald Trump doesn't realize things like this. He doesn't understand. You can do something really positive by voting in a positive way. Come election in a few hours, you can really, in effect, change the world. You can make a difference. You can choose the kind of story you want to be told by making sure, but why more than just not voting for Donald Trump, but by choosing someone else. And you can, voting for Jill Stein, for example, is a positive thing to do. You're making a statement about the kind of world that you want to live in, about the kind of story you want to tell. But you've got to think about at the same time whether voting for Jill Stein, I definitely support you in that. But whether will you be able to maximize your authorship in the world through that vote, or would it be through Hillary Clinton? So these are all things to think about. And what I'm trying to say here is that when it comes down to it, I know it all. We all feel powerless, and that's why people vote for Donald Trump. I get it, because they feel powerless and they're afraid. But we're not powerless. We change the world with our every breath, with every moment that we're alive. We are creating a story. We are creating a narrative. We are telling a tale, and we have that opportunity now. And so I urge all Americans who are voting to make a positive choice, and to choose the kind of story they want to tell. And I get it. You might not like Obama. You might be afraid of ISIS and so on, and that's all fair enough. But just think about it for a moment. Like, do you really want to live in a world where everything is frightening? Is that the story you want to tell? Do you want to live in a world where people are subjugated or discriminated against because of where they're from, or what they look like, or what they believe? Like, is that really the kind of story that you want to tell? Because where does that story go? We've seen that story before, over and over again, and it doesn't end well. So, do you want to live in a world where a world that we can work with? Now, to give you some context from where in terms of where I'm coming from, I'm mixed race, and not just mixed race. My background is multicultural and multi-religious as well, multinational. And what that means is that I know what it feels like to be a kind of, everyone thinks that means that you fit in everywhere, but that's not what it's like. It literally means that you fit in nowhere. And I know what it feels like to be in a position where you're looked at as different, and as such, you're not granted the same opportunities, because you don't fit into certain groups, or people don't give you the benefit of the doubt, and so on. And I can imagine what it's like to live in an age where that is the status quo, because that is what will happen if Donald Trump is elected. The status quo will be that if you're different from me or from you or from anyone else, you're not given the benefit of the doubt. You're not given the opportunity to tell your story. Basically what we get is a situation where on the basis of fear, and on the basis of suspicion, and on the basis of our comfort zone, and that's the worst part about this, of our comfort zone, where we're going to live in a world where we're going to have increasing marginalization, and increasing pushing of people to the frontiers, of isolation. And I dream of a different kind of story. I dream of a story where difference is celebrated, where whether you're a woman, or whether you're gay, or whether you're bisexual, or transgender, or whether you're Muslim, or Sufi, or Native American, or Jewish, or Christian, or Baha'i, or anything else, you have something unique and beautiful to give to the world. And that is the kind of world, the kind of story that I want to tell. That's the world that I want to live in. And we will get exponentially further from that if we elect Donald Trump as president. But if we elect Hillary Clinton, we can work. We have a chance of working with the world she will preside over, and possibly making that a reality. She'll make it difficult. Yeah, she'll make it difficult. She'll make it really hard. But we can work with that at the very least. We can push, and we can make it happen. I sincerely believe that. I sincerely believe we can make it happen. The world isn't a static thing. A quote from Steven Universe is, "Nothing is still on Earth. Nothing is still, and everything is always changing." And we need to embrace that, and write and speak and talk and engage in making a story. And we have that opportunity now, and I hope that everyone will I don't want to say make the wisest decision, but make a decision that's true to the kind of world they want to live in from their heart, like from their heart. Because I think if you're honest with yourself, you don't want to be afraid all the time. Even if you're a Republican, you don't want to be afraid all the time. You don't want someone to tell you that you have to be afraid all the time, or that there are people beneath you. I don't think you really think like that. I simply don't believe it, or that you you need to be aggressive all the time. I don't believe that you really want to live in a world like that. Think about what a world would look like if it was like that, if that was the status quo. And it doesn't have to be. You don't have to like Hillary Clinton, but I do think that you do need to love the world, and you need to love it for no other reason than you live in it. And we need to make a choice, and we need to tell a story. I'll leave it at that. And thanks for listening. This is a new series I'm going to try out, where I pick world events and talk about the kind of narrative that's set by that world event, whether it's historical or contemporary. And the last thing I'd like to say is that something that we don't seem to realize is that the Trump platform seems to be so concerned with ISIS and that whole fiasco. But what people don't realize is that they're the same thing. It's the same story. It's the story of hating difference, because that's who ISIS basically are. Is that they're Republicans on steroids with arms and with a whole lot of hate to back them up. But that's who they are. It's the same thing. It's this idea that if someone doesn't subscribe to the exact same way I believe, then they can be destroyed, or that they can be exiled or subjugated or disregarded. And that's the story, whether it's Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi or Donald Trump, it's the same story. It's they're telling the same narrative, and we need to change it. We need to we need to radically, take a step where that is no longer the story that we're telling, and it starts here. It starts with this opportunity to choose something else. And I don't mean to offend Republicans. That's not my intention, and I'm so sorry if you feel that I've done that, but what I'm basically trying to say is, if you want to, and I get it, you want change as well, and but if you really want to change things, the same guy, the guy who basically is a white version of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi isn't going to give you that change. You're not going to get safer. You're not going to get a better story. And I'm not saying Hillary Clinton will give you the best story, but together maybe we can really make something positive by working it out, and not trying to come up with some kind of final solution, because I don't know if you caught on to that, but a final solution is a terrible thing. So let's do something positive together, and let's make a choice, and let's tell a story together, and let's make it something amazing. Thank you.